All right, guys. Hey, welcome in. I think I went out. There we go. All right, guys. Welcome back. It's Brad with College SportsCast. We are here to do our ACC season preview. I got John Hammonds on with me. What's up, Hammonds?
What's up, my man? What's happening, my man?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Hey, man. What's up?
Not much, brother.
So we're going to dive right into the ACC tonight. We got 15 teams to run through, so it's probably going to take us a little while to run through all this. But
yeah, once
we
once
are
we
going
get to
to
the end,
start.
and once we get to the end, we'll kind of go a little faster.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. We're going to start with Boston College. And I punched the wrong one. I see. But we're going to start with Boston College. I see that I punched the wrong one.
No, you're good.
All right, so Boston College. They went 3-9 last year. They went 2-6 in the ACC. So they didn't have a real good year. They got a fourth-year head coach. He's 15-20 in 3 years at Boston College. And we're going to kind of start out with keys to this season for Boston College. What you got, John?
Well, the biggest challenge for Boston College to me is replacing their star receiver, Zay Flowers, that went to the pros. They got the UCF transfer, Ryan O'Keefe. He's got similar style to him. But another problem they got was the offensive line was a big issue last year. They finished dead last in the country in rushing yards. They was tied for 126 in sacks allowed. But they do get back all ACC guard Christian Mahogany. He returns after missing last year with a knee injury. So, and if you look at the schedule that Boston College has got, there's an opportunity for a bowl game. It's just, where is those wins going to come from?
We'll get to all that. We got a whole list of stuff to go through here.
But that's
for me, a key to them having any kind of good season at all, they have got to find a running game. Last year they were like almost dead last or maybe dead last in the country. And a key to this season for me, they got to find a running game. And that's what I have for keys. for this season. The next one that I have is transfer in and out. You've already mentioned the transfer in, Ryan O'Keefe from UCF, wide receiver, to kind of fill that spot. Flowers left. And then I have a safety, Jason Mater, that left and went to Wisconsin as their biggest loss.
Well, and they also added Kari Johnson from Arkansas. That was a big add in their secondary to the cornerback position. They also brought in Alex Washington. He's from Harvard. And they brought in Victor Nelson from Long Island. And they bring back Elijah Jones, Cole Bateson, and Amari Jackson.
Good stuff, man.
So they're going to, they're going to be decent on defense.
Yeah.
They was I think one of the best in the ACC at getting to the quarterback last year. And I think they was 8.5 sacks. They had like 8.5 sacks. So the biggest issue is not really so much their defense, it's so much their offense. Where are they going to get that running game? Because you got to have a run game to win some games in the ACC with how difficult it is.
Yeah, for sure. I think a key player for them is going to be Emmett Moorhead, the quarterback. He's a sophomore this year, and I believe he's going to be a key figure for them this year, for this team to be to have a chance at bowl eligibility.
I agree with you.
Key game. Trying to go through kind of a little format here for you guys. I've got my key game listed as September the 23rd at Louisville.
Yeah,
that's what I got listed as a key game for Boston College.
That's a big game, but I'll say this. They've got a manageable out-of-conference schedule. They play Northern Illinois, Holy Cross, Army, and UConn. Now, UConn's going to be a little bit better. They was better last year. Army, you just don't know what Army's going to do. But at the same time, you got to win those games, those swing games because when you get into ACC play, it gets a little tougher. So if you're going to get to a bowl game, you need to at least win 4 of those, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, and that's the reason why they've got a kind of easier schedule leading up to that Louisville game, and that's the reason why, Louisville's going to be a little better. So I think, if they could go and steal a win at Louisville, that would be an absolute huge step for them getting bowl eligibility.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah. Best players for the team. You've already mentioned quite a few of them, actually. Ryan O'Keefe, Del Palma, linebacker, he's a senior. Cam Arnold, the linebacker that's a senior. I think defense is probably going to be one of their better, the better side of the token for them, at least early on in that easier part of the schedule.
I do agree with you.
All right. Fun stat, they had 25 fumbles last year. Fumbles, not turnovers.
Fumbles. Yeah.
Yeah. That can't happen. If you're gonna turn this around and have a better than a 3-9 season, you absolutely cannot have 25 fumbles.
No, you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah, they got to turn it around. So I'm going to take a look at it real quick. They start at Northern Illinois. They got Holy Cross. Then they play Florida State at home, at Louisville, Virginia, Army, at Georgia Tech, UConn. And November is at Syracuse, Virginia Tech at home, at Pitt, and Miami at home.
So it's not really if I'm not mistaken, they avoid Clemson, FSU, and a few others, right?
They do.
And
No, they
that's a
play
big help.
FSU at home, but
Oh,
they
they do
avoid
play
Clemson.
FSU at home.
They avoid they avoid they avoid they avoid North Carolina State. They avoid North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
They don't play Wake Forest this year.
It's manageable.
You know, so I set their win total at 5.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they go over or under on 5?
I think there'll be 5. I think there's a chance for a bowl game, but you got to win some of those games that I talked about with the non-conference slate. You got to win at least 4 of those, or maybe even sweep them, because the ACC is not going to
Yeah,
be easy
absolutely.
for.
If they could win 4 of those and beat Virginia Tech at home, and
Mm-hmm.
and maybe one more, maybe they can find 6. I'm gonna, I set it at 5. I'm probably going to say 5 and 7 for them. That would be an improvement. I do think they have a chance of getting 6 and 6, though.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
All right. The second team that we're going to look at is Clemson. That's who I pushed to start with a while ago. So, anyway, Clemson is number 2 that we're running this time. They went 11-3 last year, 9-0 in the regular season in the ACC. Of course, they have Dabo. Dabo's in his 16th year there, 161 wins and only 39 losses. And let's not pretend that Clemson still isn't mostly the class of the ACC. So
until you knock them off,
there's been a lot of
still,
noise.
Yeah.
Clemson may falter this year or whatever, but the AP poll come out yesterday. I think they were 9th in the country to start out with in the AP poll. Keys to the season. What do you got as a key? What do you think is going to be a key to their season for their team?
I think it's quarterback play.
I mean, I think it's going to be Garrett. I think it's going to be Garrett Riley. Is what I think.
Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. Cade Klubnik last year, he come in as a fresh. I think we're interrupting each other at the same time. Let me go. Let me redo it. Cade Klubnik, he was a freshman last year.
Yeah, go ahead.
He made some mistakes, but you saw the talent that was on display when he made plays happen. I believe Randall is going to be a big key for them in their wide receiver room. He's coming off a knee injury from last year. So I think, like you said, I think it's Garrett Riley. How does he get that team to mesh together? And, what we're talking about, Garrett Riley, he's the offensive coordinator. So,
right.
And
I think getting Cade Klubnik to the level, you know what I mean? I think getting him to the level that he can be an efficient quarterback and Garrett's offense is going to be key. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. I'll be honest with you, though. Clemson's defense is going to be good, but they're losing 4 all ACC players to the NFL. So they're going to be restocking and rebuilding, but they probably have one of the best, probably the biggest argument for best linebacker duo in the country, Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. They're legit. They're elite. And they get Rook Hahoro back. I think that's how you say it. Um, he's a big NFL draft guy for next year. They get Nate Wiggins back. He's a rising star in the secondary. And they only finished 76 in the country last year nationally passing, and that's usually not normal. Last year was last year was really just a down year, if you want to be honest, for Clemson. It was not the season that they expected.
Yeah, I agree with that. Transfers in. They have a QB that transferred in from Arizona State, Paul Tyson. He's going to be a backup to Cade. He's not going to be a starter, but in big boy football, you got to have a decent backup. So I give the biggest top transfer in to him. And of course, they lost DJ in the transfer portal to Oregon State. I think for Clemson fans, that's not a big deal. I think they were ready to kind of get rid of DJ and to move to Cade Klubnik, I'm pretty sure. So, but last year, Cade was kind of the backup and came in, and if he was to get hurt, they definitely need a backup. So,
well, here's my philosophy on
key
this.
player I have is Adam Randall. Do what?
Oh, well, I was just going to say, you had the 11-3 year last year. An ACC championship and a New Year's Day bowl, right? Well, they lose the New Year's Day bowl. Dabo goes and fires his longtime staffer, Brandon Streeter, after 1 year as offensive coordinator, and brings in Garrett Riley. That tells you, he's wanting to kick things up a notch. And, you just don't fire people out of the blue like that, especially, Dabo and Brandon Streeter was really good friends. And that just don't happen. And, in this day and age. So, well, it does, but.
No, Dabo's pretty loyal to start with.
What I'm saying with Dabo's pretty loyal to a fault. And so he was trying to mix things up. So.
Yeah.
Can it work is the question.
Okay. I know everybody's going to say Cade Klubnik or Shipley. I think I'm going to put out Adam Randall, a sophomore wide receiver.
Yeah.
Cade Klubnik's going to need somebody to throw the ball to.
Yeah,
I think he's got the talent, and I think he could be a key player.
The key game. Can I say this one? It's FSU. Has to be.
Key game
September.
The key game's FSU, September the 23rd.
And I'll tell you why. FSU has won in Death Valley since 2013.
Yep. Matter of fact, Clemson has won 7 straight.
Yep.
They've won 7 straight. Clemson has in this series. This Florida State game, there is a lot of hype about it. Florida State was preseason ranked 8 yesterday compared to Clemson 9. There's a lot of Clemson fans that's upset by that. And, Clemson's been the class of the ACC for the last 7-8 years. I think they have the right to say that they are the class of the ACC right now until proven otherwise.
I agree. I think it all boils down to can FSU
best players. You've already named the linebacking core. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it just all boils down to whether FSU can go in there and win. That because FSU has had a monkey on its back for some time because FSU hasn't been the FSU of old. But this year, there's a lot of hype with FSU. There's a lot of re-energized energy sitting in Tallahassee this year. So they're going to have to, their fans are expecting quite a bit this year.
Yeah, I agree. Best players, we've named quite a few. I'm going to name one more. Will Shipley, the running back. He's pretty special on a college football field, and I think he's going to be one of their better players this year.
Most definitely.
Fun stats. Their offense last year had 3,253 passing yards, okay? Their defense gave up 3,244 passing yards.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost identical. It's 9 yards separating what they done and what they gave up. Clemson is a lot better than that, and they're going to have to figure out how not to give up that many defensive passing yards.
Oh, most definitely.
That's my fun stat on Clemson. Now, I've got let's take a look at their schedule real quick. They start at Duke. They start at Duke. They play Charleston Southern, Florida Atlantic, Florida State at home, at Syracuse, Wake Forest at home, at Miami, at NC State, Notre Dame at home, Georgia Tech at home, North Carolina at home, and South Carolina away. So they only play 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, they got 5 away games.
Well, and another thing, too, is Clemson and that Syracuse game, it's always tricky. That game's always played good. And it seems like every year you have that one game that Clemson always seems to trip up in. And that's one of the games that I possibly could be, the Clemson game, because you remember a couple years back, they lost to Pitt at home. So Clemson always has that one game where they trip up.
Yeah. So that's a look at their schedule. I'll be honest with you. I have their win total set at 10. Do you think they go over, match, or under 10?
I think it depends on that FSU game, to be honest. They got to win that one.
Well, I mean, it's going to, of course.
Mm-hmm. I like this Clemson team. I just think there'll be one game where they trip up, and I'm not real sure where it's going to be at. But I think they're going to trip up one game late in the year somewhere. Because if you've known them, except for that one, the undefeated season, they tripped up in a couple games. So,
I'll be honest with you. I think they're going to win at home against Florida State. I've got them 11-1.
Yep.
So that's where I've got Clemson is 11-1.
Yep.
So I got them going over. Next in line is Duke.
Duke, yep.
We're going to talk about Duke. You got Mike Elko. as the coach.
Yep.
And they went 9-4 last year. A lot of people probably don't even realize that.
They did.
And they have a heck of a quarterback back as well.
Riley Leonard, yep.
Yeah.
Well,
and a lot of people probably don't even realize that.
And another thing, too, they bring back 17 starters, and they bring back one of the top linemen in the country in Graham Barton. So their offense is going to be pretty good. You know, they're going to be real good.
It is. I think this is Duke has a chance to be a sleeper team.
They do.
They have a chance
I
to be
agree.
a sleeper team here in the ACC, I think.
I agree.
Key to the season for me, if they're gonna be a sleeper team, is third down conversions.
Yeah,
They definitely have to get a little better at third down conversions.
Yeah, it was bad last year.
Yeah. So, all right. Transfers in, transfers out. Miles Jones, a cornerback from Texas A&M, transferred in. He's really going to help that defense. And then Addison Penn, the center last year, is not currently on the team. He has not officially transferred, but he's not currently on the team.
You know, what's so interesting about Mike
Key
Elko?
players,
You know what's so interesting about Mike Elko, though, is the previous 2 years they won 5 games. And then all of a sudden he just shoots up and they win 9. Like it's been that quick. They've got competitive that quick.
Oh, I know.
And a lot of that has to do with their offensive coordinator, Kevin Johns. He's one of the best coordinators, offensive coordinators in the ACC. I hope Duke sleeps through the season, says Lauren.
Oh, I agree. Yeah. I had to put that one up since we were talking about Duke there.
Yeah.
All right. Key players. I've got Franklin, a defensive tackle, senior. I think he's going to be a key player on that defense, and that's who I picked as the key player.
I think.
And for me,
I think the front four up front is going to be big. Dwayne Carter is back. Franklin's back. You know, they got the linebacker crew. Cam Dillon, he arrived late last year, I think, from Columbia, and ended up getting a starting job for him last year. So I think Duke's going to be a really surprise team. But I'll say this on Duke. They play Clemson, Florida State, Notre Dame, NC State, North Carolina, and Wake Forest. Woo! Talk about brutal. That's a brutal schedule, and it's a lot harder. It's a lot harder this year than it was last year.
Yeah, their schedule is not easy. That's the reason why. Yeah, their schedule is a lot harder this time. But my key game for them is the first game of the season. I really think that's going to set the tone. They play Clemson, the very first game of the season at home.
Mm-hmm. That's the big one.
You know, now I'm not saying that they're going to step up and beat Clemson right off the bat, but I think they need to make it a game and not let Clemson come in, run them out, and destroy the morale right off the bat at the very beginning of the season.
That first game's huge in terms of, like you said, you don't want to get blown out. You don't want to have to start 0-1 and feel like you're just trying to be desperate the following week and try to get everything back in one moment. It's just you want to play tight with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I got as key game. Best players, we've already named quite a few of them on that defensive line. Riley Leonard, the quarterback. Jalen Calhoun, wide receiver, is going to be important to him. So
what's the fun stat?
they gave up 36 sacks last year. That's my fun stat for them. It's not quite so fun. They got to do a little better than giving up 36 sacks.
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
Yeah, they got to do a little better than giving up 36 sacks. Now, this is going to sound low, okay? I've got the season win total set at 6. All right. You've already kind of ran through their schedule. I'll run through real quick. Clemson.
That's where I was going with this. I was going to say
what I was going to say.
Well, what I was going to say, that's where I was going with this, was 6 wins, in which that's not going to be bad, because the fact is, look at who you're playing. The schedule last year was more favorable last year than it was this year. And 6 wins, maybe a 7th if you knock somebody off.
And they won 9. They're coming off of 9 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're coming off of 9 wins, and I don't think 6 wins is going to make them happy, to be honest with you.
No, it's not.
And I really think they have a chance of going 7-5. I think they have a chance of going 7-5. And if they can put together that offense, maybe they have an outside chance of going 8-4 and playing a little bit of sleeper role in the ACC. But I'm going to put them at 7-5 for the year.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you.
You think you got them at 6-6 or 7-5?
That's where I was going with it, anyways. I was going with 6-6.
Okay. All right. The next one we're going, I'm kind of doing these close to alphabetical order. Next one we're doing is Florida State. I already started out saying that Florida State was 8th in the country in the AP poll yesterday. They got Mike Norvell there as the coach. I think this is his 4th year. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4th year. I was having to look it up real quick. They had a great season last year. They went 10-3, 5-3 in the ACC, and they have a lot of key players back. He's 18-16 at Florida State now after last year, and I think he's firmly off the hot seat. I thought he was on the hot seat last year, but I think he's firmly off the hot seat right now. Everybody in the country thinks they might have a chance of beating Clemson. So
I'll say this: the keys to the season, the offense is going to be there. What is so great about this FSU team is they went out into the portal and they done some business. They picked up Gilbert Edmond from South Carolina. They brought Fiske from Western Michigan. Jared Verse comes back. They get the ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year, Patrick Payton, back. I'll say this: if this defense can keep them in games and the offense do what they got, FSU could rock the party in the New Year's Day, but in the New Year's college football playoff.
Yeah, but their defense has to be better, I think,
it does.
to be.
Which they do bring back Jared. They do bring back Jared Verse, one of the best players in the country. He's
Verse, yeah,
he's top notch. He's elite.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Their top transfer in I have as tight end Bell from South Carolina. That's who I put as their top transfer in. And the transfer out is Treshaun Ward that went to Kansas State, running back.
Well,
he was one of the three-headed monster running backs last year, and he transferred out to Kansas State.
They also got Keon Coleman from Michigan State. I think he came in it was pretty late, if I'm not mistaken. It was pretty late in the transfer portal. This team is loaded, to be
All right,
honest.
key player was talking about their defense. I've got it. I've got it as Braden. I've got it as Braden Fisk. He's a defensive tackle. He's going to be playing beside Verse, and he's a senior. And you're going to have so much talent right next to you that's going to attract all the attention. And this D tackle has got to have a stellar year.
He does. I agree.
All right, key game. It's the same as Clemson. It's the September 23rd at Clemson in Death Valley. That is absolutely – I know they start the season off with LSU, and that is a huge game. I'm not going to pretend like it's not, okay? It is. But if FSU loses the Florida or the LSU game, if they could run the table in the ACC, that LSU loss is not going to hurt them.
But the thing is, though, they lose to LSU.
So
that Clemson game becomes crucial now because you don't want to lose two of those games.
Crucial. Absolutely crucial. Yeah, absolutely. If they start out 2-2, that could be an issue. All right, best players. We hadn't even mentioned Jordan Travis. So, I've got to at least mention one of the better quarterbacks in the country. I would say that he's a senior. He had a really good season last year, operates a really good offense. They had a three-headed monster rushing attack, and he places the ball, in very good spots, and he's a good quarterback, good manager of a good offense.
And he's really good with his feet too.
All right, fun stat. Again, Florida State gave up 40 sacks last year. 40. That's got to be fixed.
Well, and they replaced that with, in the transfer portal, they get back Gibbons. They brought in Roddick from Colorado, Byers from UTEP, and Keandre Jones from Auburn. So they done some work in the transfer portal on the offensive line. So there's going to be some depth there.
Yeah. All right. Schedule look. They start out in Orlando, LSU. Then they play Southern Miss, at Boston College, then at Clemson, then open date, then Virginia Tech at home, Syracuse at home, Duke at home, at Wake Forest, at Pitt, Miami at home, North Alabama at home, and then they end the season at Florida. That's always their last game is with Florida.
Yeah, it's the big rival.
I have their win total set at 9. That's where I have their win total set is at 9. Do you think they can go over with that schedule?
I think they're at least at 10. It's going to depend on.
Get to 10.
It depends on the LSU game and the Florida State game. Those are the two swing games.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the schedule, the LSU game, the at Clemson, and then outside of that, I mean, they got to play at Wake Forest and at Pitt, which won't be easy probably. But outside of that, I mean, they end at Florida, but I don't expect Florida to be all that great. So I expect, 10-2, I think, is attainable. And I think that would be a great season for them. I'm not sure that FSU fans will be happy with that if they still lose to Clemson in Death Valley.
No, that will be it won't be nice for them. No.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be happy with that if they still lose to Clemson. All right, so we're going to move on to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, they replaced their coach after 3 games last year. They've got Brent Key is their coach now.
Yeah, they started out.
He did go 4-4 in the ACC last year after he took over.
Yeah, they started out 1-3, and then all of a sudden they started playing so much better football towards the end of the season. And take away the Georgia game, and they competed probably in every single game they played.
Yeah, they played a lot better after he was hired as a coach last year. I think he done a heck of a job turning them around in season. He was an interim coach last year and, of course, was hired after the season as a full-time because he did go 4-4 with them. And like you said, outside of the Georgia game, they competed in almost every game. So key to the season for me, and I know it's not going to be the old Paul Johnson era running game, but Georgia Tech's got to find a running game. The year before, they lost Jahmyr Gibbs to Alabama. And they really didn't have much last year in the running game, and I think they got to find a running game this year.
I think it's their pass rush.
Okay.
They're gonna have to be a little bit better on defense too, a little bit.
We can be different. It's all right.
Yeah. Well,
I can go with that.
And I'll be honest with you, under Collins, it was just there was no offensive identity, man, and they didn't have no depth. They didn't have anybody that could go in there and do what they needed to do, and it was just and still this roster to me still lacks a lot of playmaking ability. But each year you grow, right? Last year they start out 1-3, then all of a sudden they end the year 4-4.
Yeah, absolutely.
Progress is the key. And that's the main thing with Georgia Tech.
Yeah, absolutely.
Georgia Tech's not going to come in here overnight and start winning ACC championships. Calvin Johnson and, others are not walking through that door right now. So, it's a progress. And that's the way I see it with this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Transfer in. I have Braylon Oliver from Minnesota, a linebacker, so that should help on defense a little bit. And they lost quarterback Jeff Sims to Nebraska in a transfer portal as the biggest loss out. That's what I have.
That's what I have.
Key players. They got a redshirt freshman by the name of Zach Pyron that's a quarterback. It's going to be either him or Hayes King from Texas A&M.
And if we're being
That
fair,
will probably be your starting quarterback.
if we're being fair, it's probably going to be Haynes King just because of experience, I think.
And you're right. It probably will be, but I don't think Hayes King is going to come in and be spectacular. And I think this kid, Zach Pyron, could be.
You could.
So I don't know if you just start him out and ride through some stuff, at the first few games, and give him a chance, or like you said, if you go with the experienced guy and with Hayes King. So, I think either one of those two are going to be a key player for Georgia Tech and for that offense.
Can I say this? The reason why I said I think the defense is because they lose Keon White, when he went pro, and they lost two of their starting linebackers, so they're going to have a turnover, and they got a few guys that come back from the team last year, but losing him and those two linebackers are going to be huge in my opinion.
So key game, what do you have for the key game? I tell you what I have. I put the very first game of the year against Louisville, home against Louisville, September the 1st. And the reason why I put that is this. 3 of the last 4 years, their ACC opener has been Clemson. This year, they get Louisville with a brand new coach, very first game, new offense, new players. That Brom has got 50 new players on that team, and they have to go on the road and play at Georgia Tech to open the season. I think that would be a key game for Georgia Tech to get a win at home to start the season.
And I'll tell you something I didn't mention earlier. They're getting Nate McCollum from North Carolina, Christian Leary from Alabama, Dominique Blaylock from Georgia. So they're going to have some guys they can throw the ball to. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this new offensive scheme that they're going to be running.
Quarterback. I think it's going to be interesting how they handle the quarterback situation, to be honest.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing.
Yeah, so, you're mentioning some players. So I already mentioned the 2 quarterbacks. LaMiles Brooks, safety. He's a junior. Braylon Oliver, like I said, is going to be a big one. Dante Smith, running back, I think he's a senior, is going to be a big one as well for them, one of their better players. All right, so fourth quarter last year, they gave up 104 points and only scored 59. You would hope to see some improvement on that in the fourth quarter.
You do. I agree.
All right. Take a quick look at their schedule. Again, they open at home with Louisville, South Carolina State at home, at Ole Miss, at Wake Forest. Then they come back and play Bowling Green at home, at Miami, home with Boston College, home North Carolina, at Virginia, at Clemson, Syracuse at home, and Georgia at home to end the season in their rivalry game. I have their win total set at 5. That might seem a little high, but they did go 5-7 last year. I have their win total set at 5. And what do you think on that one?
That's fair.
Over, under, or Yeah, match it.
Five's about right.
I mean, when you look at their South Carolina State, they'll probably win. Bowling Green at home, they'll probably win. I think they can probably beat Boston College at home. They might be able to beat Syracuse at home. So if they can still maybe a win at Virginia or a home game against Louisville, maybe they can get 5 and go 5-7 in their second year as well, and still get a few more guys in there.
That's fair.
All right, so I was just talking about Louisville. Now we're going to go to Louisville. Louisville's next. Of course, they brought in Jeff Brom, former player, former quarterback, who's been at Purdue, coached at Western Kentucky, and is a good coach. First year, like I said, this will be his 10th year. He's coached 9 seasons. He's 66-44 overall at Western Kentucky and Purdue. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive. In my opinion, he's a great offensive mind. He's a quarterback himself, and he'll get Louisville going in the right direction. I will say that.
I'll say this.
To the season for me,
I'll say this. The defense was a lot better last year. But my biggest concern is the offense. I know Brom is probably one of the best offensive minds, but he's relying on a lot of transfers for his offense at wide receiver. And he's flipping in a new quarterback. I think leading Jahar Jordan's back. I think Maurice Turner's back in the backfield with him. So the quarterback play, to me, is going to be the key to this team. And they got the transfer.
Here's what I'm going to say about Jeff Brom and his offenses. Here's what I want to say about Jeff Brom and his offenses, okay? Sometimes he forgets about the running game in his offense.
Case in point. Remember the game we watched last year together, the Penn State game? He went completely away from what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and they had the lead and should have won that game, except he wouldn't run the clock out. Every coach I know hands the ball off and runs the clock out, but not Jeff Brom. I don't know. I don't know. So, sometimes he completely forgets about the running game and running the darn ball. And my key for Louisville this year is Jeff Brom cannot forget about running the ball sometimes. There are key moments in games that you have to run the ball.
I think it was in the middle of the year last year. And you got on we had one of our podcasts, and you said, Jeff Brom, if you can hear me, run the ball. Oh, goodness.
I mean, seriously. I mean, I'm just saying that's one of my keys for them this year. Transfers in and out. I mean, Lord have mercy. They've had so many transfer in and out, it's hard to keep up with. I mean, honestly, it's really, really hard to keep up with. Edge, I've got Stephon Herron from Stanford that transferred in, and linebacker Monty Montgomery transferred to Ole Miss. I think that's their biggest loss. But they have a ton of transfers in and out. All right, key player. I'm gonna say it's the transfer Jake Plummer. Jake Plummer, the quarterback. You know, Louisville's had Malik Cunningham there for like 17 years. For like 4 years, 5 years. I done forgot however long he was there. But he was there forever. Anyways, they haven't had another quarterback there in like umpteen years. That's what my granny would say. But, you know, Plummer coming in, he was at California last year. He threw for over 3,000 yards in the Pac-12 last year at California, had 21 touchdowns last year. So, and he is a former Jeff Brom quarterback at Purdue.
Well, and two, you know, we might as well get to their schedule. To me, I see all these games they got, and the first game is crucial because it's a road game to kick off the ACC, you know, the Jeff Brom era. This is a big step for him with the schedule that they got to kick it off and start 1-0. Because I don't think they played Georgia Tech since 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So to me, this is a really big game, especially in it being on the road. So, and their schedule is favorable. And we said it last week.
Their schedule is favorable.
Their schedule is set up for them to win 9 or 10 games. Like, honestly, I'm not even exaggerating.
Their schedule is favorable, for sure. Absolutely. You know, if you want to talk about their schedule real quick, I mean, we got at Georgia Tech, Murray State at home, at Indiana, Boston College at home, at NC State, Notre Dame at home, then at Pitt, which is their tough stretch, open date, Duke at home, Virginia Tech at home, Virginia at home, at Miami, and Kentucky at home.
I
think it's a manageable schedule. I
don't think they get tested at least till Notre Dame, though.
Yeah. I do have their win total set at 6.5. That's what the betting lines are saying. I actually think they go over that. I think they have a great chance of going 8-4. I really do with that schedule.
I think that's where I'm going to go with it.
You know, I really do. I feel like they have a very favorable schedule, and 8-4 is attainable. They do not play Florida State. They do not play Clemson. They do not play North Carolina, which is the 3 ranked ACC teams in the preseason AP poll. They don't play any of them. So that, to me, is a pretty favorable schedule. And I think Brom is a good enough coach that he can probably get them to 8-4 on that schedule.
I agree.
All right, the next team we're going to cover is Miami. Now, I'm going to give you a stat or two. I might save this for the fun stat, maybe. I'm not sure. But Mario Cristobal is the coach. He's in his second year. They went 5-7 last year. They only went 3-5 in the ACC. They got beat by MTSU at home. I mean, they really had a putrid year and was ranked in the top 15 preseason last year.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to give you a stat here real quick, okay? Mario Cristobal coached quite a few years at Oregon, okay, which is a premier, in the country. I think they're a premier team in the country, and now he's at Miami. He's coached 11 years. All right. His record is 67-67. That's his coaching record. What do you think about that, John?
Well, I want to try to stay away from the Miami crazies because I don't want them to come after me. But at the same time, they're too talented. They're too talented to repeat last year's performance.
I'm just saying, Cristobal's coaching record is 67-67 after 11 years.
And you wouldn't think that with what he did at Oregon either.
Keys to the season, listen to me, stop with all the turnovers. Stop it.
It was
Stop.
It was pretty bad last year.
I mean, Lord have mercy.
Seemed like every game they had turnover. It seemed like.
I mean, what was it? MTSU, they had 8 turnovers in one game or something like that?
Yeah, it was something like that. I can't remember. It was just.
I mean,
it was.
Stop it. Stop with all the turnovers. You can't have 47 million turnovers in one season.
Mm-mm.
I'm just saying. All right, transfer. They had Cohen, offensive guard, transfer in from Alabama, transfer out. I think they lost offensive tackle John Campbell to their biggest loss and biggest transfer in. I've got Zion Nelson, offensive tackle, senior, as their key player. I think they got to shore up that offensive line, and he's going to be a start for that.
Mm-hmm.
Key game.
I think
it's Texas A&M at home.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
September the 9th. It's the, I think, second game of the year for them, I'm pretty sure. And it's a home game, and Texas A&M comes to the house. I mean, if Miami's going to turn this thing around and Cristobal's going to turn this thing around, it's a game they need to win.
Yep, it's a big game.
And it's not going to be an easy game for them to win. I mean, A&M's probably going to be favored on their home field.
Yeah.
Tyler Van Dyke, stop with all the turnovers.
Yeah, it was bad last year.
I mean, Lord have mercy. Fun stats? I'm sorry, there wasn't any fun stats for Miami last year.
It went It went downhill quick.
All right. I'm kind of messing, but I'm kind of not. So, let's look at their schedule real quick. They start out with Miami of Ohio. Then they play Texas A&M at home. Then they got Bethune-Cookman at home, at Temple, Georgia Tech at home, at North Carolina, Clemson at home, Virginia at home, at NC State, at Florida State, Louisville at home, and at Boston College. When you look at their schedule, the first, if they can get past Texas A&M, they have a chance of being 5-0.
They do.
Now, the back half of their schedule at North Carolina, Clemson, at NC State, Florida State, they play some tough games.
They do. I agree.
I've got their win total set at 7. I got their win total set at 7. Do you think they can go over, under, or is that accurate?
I think they're probably going to be at 8. That's just my opinion.
I think they can get to 8-4 with that schedule. But I think that's on the better end. I'm going to call them 7-5. That's what I'm going to call them.
Let's go with that.
Until I see something improved or better, I don't believe it. So all right. From Miami, we are going to NC State. NC State is in an 11th year with Doreen. They went 8-5 last year, 4-4 in the ACC. He's 72-54 in his 11th year at NC State.
Mm-hmm. The thing about NC State,
they consistently win 7 or 8 games.
They have probably one of the best in the ACC on defense coming back. They got 6, I think, starters. Peyton Wilson comes back, and they get Aiden White back. So their defense is going to be really good. Now, their offense, I think, they bring in Brennan Armstrong, the quarterback. So, and then they lost Devin Leary to Kentucky. So they kind of swapped in quarterbacks.
And they lost the running back Demi to Kentucky too.
They lost him too to Kentucky. So I'm not so much worried about the defense for NC State because they're going to have a really good defense. It's the offense, how they're going to respond behind.
And I think that's key to their season. They're going to have to find enough offense.
They're going to have to find some
offense. They got to try to find 25 points a game.
Mm-hmm.
They got to try to find 25 points a game, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
Transfer in, I'm going to call Brennan Armstrong from Virginia, the quarterback. He's probably going to be their starter. And, they lost Devin Leary. That's, to me, the biggest loss that they have. But you could say Devin Carter, the wide receiver that transferred to West Virginia.
Yeah, he was a big loss for him too.
All right, key player. I think it's going to be Armstrong. I think Brendan Armstrong's got to come in and produce some points because the defense is going to be there. And if he can produce some points, they'll win 8 games for sure.
I agree.
Key game, I've got September the 9th, Notre Dame at home.
That's the big
They
one.
get Notre Dame at home.
Well,
Notre Dame's going to be a really good game. It's a big game for them.
They get Notre Dame at home.
They get it at home.
They get Louisville at home. They get Clemson at home. They get Miami at home, and they get North Carolina at home. So they got, to me, I wouldn't say that's a murderer's row, but those are some games you need to win if you want to impress some folks. So.
Yep.
Well, and to me, I think
we've already mentioned players.
I'll say this. I think NC State could be a sleeper team. But like we just said, it all has to do what the offense does. If the offense can get the points, there's an opportunity there. So, because the defense is going to be really
absolutely.
good.
I think so too. So, I already mentioned the Notre Dame game, which is the second game of the year for them. The first game, they play at UConn. And it's going to be a little tricky game, I think, to go at UConn and play on the road in, where they're on the uptick, UConn is. I mean, Moore Jr. has done a good job last year, and they're on the uptick. NC State can't afford to trip up that game. And then they come back and they play Notre Dame at home, VMI at home, at Virginia, Louisville, or Marshall at home, at Duke, Clemson at home, Miami at home, at Wake Forest, at Virginia Tech, and finish the season North Carolina at home. I set their win total at I've got it set at 7.5. Is where I've got their win total set, and I think they can get to 8-4.
I do too.
Where do you think they'll be at? You think they can get to 8-4?
That's what I said. I said 8-4. I think it's like 2 seconds behind yours is what it is. When we're trying to talk. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm still going to have to figure something else out. All right, so we're moving on to North Carolina. North Carolina, of course, started out great. Towards the end of the season, kind of the wheels fell off and lost a few games there at the end. But with about 2 or 3 games to go, 2 games to go, I believe, in the season, they had a chance to win the ACC. They wound up 9-5, 6-2 in the regular season. Mac Brown's in his 5th year. He is 30-22 there at North Carolina. And they bring back one of the better quarterbacks in the nation, Drake May. And they have some pretty high expectations. They are the 3rd team ranked in the AP poll. I think they're ranked 23rd.
Well, I just got to say something. I did it again. So I said that Nate McCollum was going to be at Georgia Tech. Well, he's actually at North Carolina. My scouting report was not right. I must have overlooked something. I've done that twice in the past 2 weeks, getting confused on players going. This transfer portal got me so. This transfer portal's got me so confused, man.
Man, it's hard to keep up with all of them in this transfer portal.
Yeah, it's a mess, man. But like I said, they get Tez Walker. He's from Kent State. Nate McCollum's from Georgia Tech. Drake May's coming back. They got an opportunity to play for a spot in the ACC championship if we really want to be truthful. But my problem ain't the offense. The problem is the defense. Allowing 30.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's been their problem the last 2 years.
30 points a game. Like, that's unheard of. They couldn't stop the run.
It was even worse the year before that. It was like 32 or 35 or something.
Yeah, it was just it's not good.
Yeah, I mean, the key to their season is going to be the defense, honestly.
I mean,
can they hold opponents to like 23, 24 points a game?
That's the thing.
Transfer in and out. You've already mentioned Tez Walker, wide receiver, out. Tony Grimes went to Texas A&M, a cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
Key player I've got listed as offensive tackle William Barnes, senior. I think your tackles are always key. And Drake May, you got one of the better quarterbacks in the country. I think it's going to be important to keep a good offensive line, and that's why I picked him. My key game, and I'm just going to say it, is the very first game of the year. They play South Carolina at home. September the 2nd, coming up, very first game of the year. And it's College Game Day is going to be there. They've already announced College Game Day is going to be there for that game. It's a big game. And
I'll say this, I'm not so sure they win that game.
That's why I got it as a key game. It's at home. It's against South Carolina. You're North Carolina. You got Drake May back, and you can't let South Carolina come in there and whip your tail at home.
Well, you know what was bad was last year. They won 9 games, but the collapse they had late in the year. They lost at home to Georgia Tech and North Carolina State, and then they went into the ACC championship and got completely manhandled by Clemson. And
lost that.
And then they got to the Holiday Bowl and they lost to Oregon, but that was hardly the point. It was the 4 losses down the stretch in the regular season that they never did look the same.
That's what I'm saying. They were great up till about 2 or 3 games to go in the regular season, and
they just went downhill quick.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I've kind of mentioned some of the best players already. Cedric Gray, linebacker, needs a good mention here. Senior linebacker. He's a really good player. So I'll give him a shout out there on the best players. All right. Their schedule. They start South Carolina, and I said that was a home game. I'm sorry, that's in Charlotte. I misspoke on it. The actual game, it's in bold letters, so I thought it was home. But when I clicked over, it's actually in Charlotte. But it's still in North Carolina, in Charlotte. Then they play Appalachian State. Let me just give me a little emphasis on that one. Appalachian State, if y'all remember that from last year. Minnesota at home, at Pitt. Syracuse at home, Miami at home, Virginia at home, Georgia Tech on the road, Campbell at home, at Clemson, and at North Carolina State. I think after the South Carolina game, then you got Pitt on the road, and outside of that, I mean, their schedule in the middle is pretty manageable until the end, the last two games at Clemson and at NC State.
8 wins.
So I've got their win total. Yeah, I've got their win total set at 7.5. It probably really should be 8. And that's where I've got them is 8-4.
That's where I got them at.
I think their schedule is manageable enough to go and be 8-4. So that's where I've got them at. Pittsburgh is next, guys. We're going to move on to Pittsburgh. They went 9. They went 5-3 in conference. And 41 in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
He's had a pretty good run with Pittsburgh in the last, actually over the last 3 or 4 years. They're probably the second best team in the ACC.
That's that's not the Pittsburgh that we're referring to, John. That's not the Pittsburgh we're referring to, John. It's not the Steelers. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, goodness. That's pretty good.
Pittsburgh Steelers, they don't play in the ACC, man.
That's got me tickled, man. Oh, goodness.
Oh, me. All right. So, like I said, to me, Pittsburgh's probably been the second best team in the ACC over the last 3 or 4 years, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Keys to their season, they got to start running the ball more from last year. They didn't run a whole lot, and then when they start running, they need to keep running.
I agree.
And I think that's, they pass the ball. Their coach likes to do that, and they have a great offense, but they need to be a little bit more balanced, I think.
You want to know, I'm going to tell you a fun stat since we're on this. Pittsburgh's combined 20 victories since 2021 rank only second to Clemson, which is 21 in the ACC.
Yeah.
That's just a key stat I want to put out. But
oh yeah, like I said, they've been the second best team in the ACC the last 3 or 4 years. They really have.
mm-hmm.
Like I said, they went 9-4 last year. So again, they had a great season last year. Biggest transfer for them is Slovis transferred out and Jerkovich transferred in from Boston College.
One moves out.
That's going to be their quarterback this year. And Pittsburgh runs a wide open offense, and he should have a great year, I would think. Key player, I've got defensive end, Dayan Hayes. He's a senior. Pittsburgh has had some really stellar line play in defensive ends. over the last 2 or 3 years, and several of them drafted as well. So I think it's going to be key to continue that.
Well, and I'll tell you too, the strength of their unit to me is their cornerback play. With their, they get back MJ Devonshire, Marquise Williams, and AJ Wood, and they played a total of 11 total seasons.
Devonshire
with 12 interceptions. Yeah, he's a former Kentucky Wildcat.
Yeah, Devonshire's
they
tough.
They also got the Florida transfer, Donovan McMillan, to fill a void at strong safety. So they're going to be pretty good, and especially in the back front of their defense.
Yeah, I think Pittsburgh has a chance to be the second or third best team in the ACC.
Oh, I do too. And the thing is, they're consistent. They're getting better every single year, especially the last couple of years. Last year they should have beat Tennessee. There were so many games they had opportunities to win and didn't. So,
Yep. My key game for them this time, I've got it September 23rd, a home game against North Carolina.
Yeah, that's pretty.
That's
huge.
what I got their key game on. They got beat last year at home to North Carolina, and I think I think Pittsburgh that's going to be a key game for them to get that win on September the 23rd. Best players, you've mentioned a bunch already, man. I just want to give a big shout out to Devonshire, cornerback, the ex-Kentucky player. He had some great interceptions and some pick six last year. He's a Kentucky.
Yeah, I was trying to plug my laptop in.
Oh, man, you're fine. All right, so their schedule. To take a quick look at their schedule, they start out with Warford, Cincinnati at home, at West Virginia.